Alright, I can't believe just, what, a few days ago I was on this very same trail and it was covered in snow and we got the Subaru stuck. So now, well, come with me, come on over here. See that? That's all the runoff from the snow. So there's no more snow, but I didn't think it was fair to test this car in the snow and get it stuck and not test it properly off-road. So now we're going to try to make it to the top of the mud puddle. There are really three places that we go. We go past the shooting range, we go to the Y where we take the hard off-road cars and the kind of crossovers, and then we go to the mud puddle and we go to the very top. And the very top we've only made in cars like the Range Rover and the Grand Cherokee. So we're going to try to get this guy to the mud puddle and see how it does in X mode, coming up next on the Fast Lane Car. Alright guys, when I got this thing stuck, I wasn't in X mode, which is Subaru super duper four-wheel drive mode that actually gives you more traction. And you know what? You're right, I should have been in X mode. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten stuck. So now I'm going to put it in X mode, which is very simple. You press this button up there, you get X mode, and you're probably curious as to what X mode does. Well, that little green icon, that means you're in hill descent control. So when you go down a hill, it does the braking for you, and perhaps more importantly, it also appropriates power, not just from the front and back, but also left and right, giving you better traction when you need it. My experience has always been that the manual methods, locking differentials, are better, but I'm going to put my faith once again in the Subaru and see if we can make it to the mud. Right here, check it out, you'll see the creek, and this is where I almost went off the road, and right here as well where we had to block the wheels to get this Subaru up the hill. But now the road is dry, 8.7 inches of ground clearance, good approach angles, all that makes just a breeze. You'll see the people are walking up here with their guns to shoot. That's because, well, a lot of you say, I could drive my Camry up here. Well, those guys have a Camry, and they're not driving up here because, well, it's not Camry worthy. So let's keep going and let's see if we can make it past the Y and to the mud pit. Oh, yeah, we're gonna go up just to the mud puddle. Why?
Oh, well, you're gonna bottom out because it's really muddy. You can keep digging through.
Yeah, you know, this thing has tires on it that are good for all season, but they're not good for mud and snow, so we're aware of them. But thanks. How did you do?
I did awesome.
Yeah, did you make it all the way to the top?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Close, so.
That looks badass. You look like you made it.
Yeah, it's my mom, so.
Hey, all right, it's a team.
Just riding through.
Take care. Thanks.
Right,
thanks for the warning. Appreciate it. Oh yeah, you can already hear the, you hear that? That's the hill descent control, braking the wheels to make sure that I'm not going too fast and I'm getting as much traction as possible. You see all that mud Look at this car. There's just a little bit on this side, but I promise you, in the next 5 minutes, this car is going to be good and properly muddy because it is a Subaru. It does have 8.7 inches of ground clearance. It does have symmetric all-wheel drive, good approach angles, good departure angles. Of course, these tires, well, they're good for the road. This is the turbocharged model, which means it's fast, it's got 18-inch all seasons, great on the highway, not so good here in the mud, but we're going to see how far we can take it. Now this Forester comes from the factory with 18-inch Bridgestone Dueler all-season tires, and they're great when you're on the highway. They're fine when you're carving canyons, but when you get into mud and snow, well, you know, they're just not as good as purpose-built snow tires or even purpose-built mud tires. In the mud, which is what we're going to encounter pretty soon, what you want is these big lugs, almost knobbies, to grip the ground. These tires are set up to funnel away water so that the car has good traction in the rain. And maybe do some light off-road work. But as you can tell, this is not light off-road work. This is, you know, a hardcore Colorado trail with Jeeps and ATVs and motorcycles. And it's very impressive that the Subaru, at least right now, is having no issues. That's like the 15th Jeep, and that's where we're going. You know, we'll see how the Subaru does. And speaking of the Subaru, I really like this engine. It's a 250 horsepower turbocharged boxer engine, which means the pistons go this way, which also allows them to put the engine lower into the bay, giving you a lower center of gravity. It's got 258 pound-feet of torque. Unfortunately, from a car enthusiast point of view, it's paired to a Cvt transmission, which gives you better fuel economy. I'm getting about 25 mpg in real-world driving, but it also gives you kind of that rubber band effect when you step on the gas. It doesn't do a lot of good out here because, well, that's just way too much horsepower to go off-roading, but we're still having fun. We've already reviewed this car, so if you want to check that review out, go to tflcar.com. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I will say that I'm impressed by how good it is off-road. I'm impressed by how much stuff you get. The interior, well, it's a mishmash of cheap plastic and softer materials. The Cvt transmission is really my only major complaint. I love traditional transmissions, especially manuals, because they really give you more control of the car, and a Cvt is the exact opposite. There's just more technology between me and the driving experience. Unfortunately, if you want the XT and you want the turbo, you gotta get the Cvt. Could I go higher up that hill where it gets really steep and muddy? Yeah, I could. Would I get stuck? Yeah, I probably would. And I've done that once this week already, which I think is enough. I'm impressed. The Forester did great. This is about as far as anybody with the street tires will take it. So on the TFL scale of buy it, lease it, rent it, or forget it, I'm gonna give it a lease it. And that's because of the antiquated user information entertainment system and because of the CVT. As always, this is Roman reporting for the Fast Lane Car. Thanks for watching. See you next time. All right, I do have to mention something about this infotainment system because as good as the Subaru is off-road, that is as bad as this is. First of all, it's ancient, the buttons are tiny, and worst of all, it doesn't work really well because, for instance, if you want to go from XM Radio 121 down to one of my favorites, and that is the classic station, the rock station, here's how you have to do it. Look. That's 114. I'm trying to get down to 7. I hold it down, nothing happens. Look, I can't get down there. Look how long it's going to take me to get down to classic rock. Subaru has got to improve their technology because this feels like, well, something out of the 1980s. And worst of all, I usually don't mention technology because I leave that to our technology editor, but this radio sounds muffled. It sounds like somebody's taken a pillow and stuck it on every single speaker. It needs improvement, seriously.